starting off problems number 1 and 2. Number 1 is multiply 6 times 2/3. So we are taking a whole number times a fraction. So the easiest way to do this is to change your whole number into a fraction. So put anything over 1 makes the number a fraction. So 6 over 1 times 2 over 3. And what we want to do is just multiply straight across, not diagonally, just straight across. So 6 times 2 is 12, over 1 times 3 is 3, and then we need to simplify. So we can actually divide both of these by 3. So our answer would be 4 over 1, which we could just write as 4. Our next problem is -2 times 3 1/5. So what we're going to do is take -2 and make it a fraction, and then we need to also change 3 1/5 into an improper fraction. So let's do that first. 3 1/5, this is number 2, I'm sorry. 3 1/5, let's change it to an improper fraction. So the first thing we do is we have to take 3 times 5, which would be 15, and then we need to add that to the numerator. So 1 plus 15 would be 16, and then we take it and put it back over the denominator that we originally had. So this becomes 16/5. So now we're going to take -2 times 16/5. So let's make both of those fractions. So -2 over 1 times 16 over 5. So -2 times 16 would be -32. And then 1 times 5 is 5. And we want to change this back into a mixed fraction. So how many times does 5 go into 32? So it would go in 6 times. So we would put -6. And 6 times 5 is 30. So that leaves us with a remainder of 2 and put it back over 5. So our answer would be -6 and 2/5. Okay, number 3, number 4. So number 3 is -8 times 6/7. So we're going to take -8 and put it over 1 times 6 over 7. And go through and multiply straight across. So -8 times 6 is -48 over 1 times 7 is 7. And then we need to make this a mixed number. So 7 goes into 48 a total of 6 times, which would be 42. So I'm going to put -6. And then 7 times 6 is 42. 48 minus 42 would be 6. So that gives us a remainder of 6 over 7. So my final answer would be -6 and 6/7. Okay, number 4, we have 2 times 5 1/3. So we need to convert 5 1/3 into an improper fraction. So again, the whole number times the denominator. 5 times 3 would be 15. Add it back to the numerator, so 15 plus 1 is 16 and put it over the denominator. So it becomes 16 thirds. So now we have 2 times 16 thirds. So let's make 2 into a fraction. So 2 over 1 times 16 over 3. So 2 times 16 is 32 over 3. And then we need to make that a mixed number. So 3 goes into 32 10 whole times. And 10 times 3 is 30. So 32 minus 30 would be a remainder of 2 over 3. So our answer is 10 and 2/3. Okay, number 5 and 6, we are just multiplying 2 fractions times each other. So number 5 and 6. Number 5 is negative 3/5 times negative 1/4. So we are going to multiply straight across. So negative 3 times a negative 1. We haven't really come across this yet in our 2 lessons, but a negative times a negative turns into a positive. So negative 3 times negative 1 actually becomes positive 3. And then 5 times 4 would be positive 20. And then we need to check and see if we can simplify that. And 3 and 20, if you think about it, they don't have anything in common. So your answer would just be 3 over 20. All right, number 6 is 5 over 12 times negative 12 over 5. So we multiply straight across. 5 times negative 12 stays a negative because you have a positive times a negative. So negative 60 over, and then 12 times 5 would be positive 60. And then we need to simplify this. So anything over itself or any number divided by itself becomes 1. So since we have that negative in the numerator, we have an answer of negative 1. All right, next is 7 and 8, and I would like you to try this on your own. Okay, let's go over number 7. 1/8 times 6/7. So multiply straight across. 1 times 6 is 6. Over 8 times 7 is 56. And check to see if these two numbers have anything in common. And they both can be divided by 2. So our answer would be 3 over 28. Okay, number 8, negative 2 over 3 times 9 over 2. So go straight across. Negative 2 times 9 is negative 18 over 3 times 2 is 6. And then I need to simplify. So negative 18 divided by 6, we need to make this a mixed number. 6 goes into 18 3 whole times with no remainder. So our answer would be negative 3. number 9 and number 10. We are going to be multiplying decimals. So we are going to use regular multiplication. We have negative 5.2 times negative 5. These parentheses right here mean the same thing as multiply. So what we're going to do is set up a multiplication problem, and we're going to ignore the decimals until the end, or the negatives, I'm sorry. We're going to ignore the negatives until the end. So 5.2 times 5. So we're going to go through a multiplication problem. So 2 times 5 is 10, so I put a 0, carry my 1. 5 times 5 is 25, but then I need to add back in the 1 right here. So it becomes 26. And then I need to go through and put my decimal back in the problem. So I need to count how many decimal places were in my problem. And I have 1 decimal place, so I need to move over 1 decimal place. So my answer would be 26. And then I need to look at my negative. So I have a negative times a negative, which would make it a positive answer. So my answer would just stay positive 26. Okay, so let's work through the next one. Once again, ignore the negatives until the end, and then I'm going to set up a multiplication problem. This extra 0 right here, I don't really have to have that in my problem. I could really make it negative 0.07 times 4.6. And that's another thing I want to explain. This dot right here is the same exact thing as a multiply sign. It's just as you get older, you stop writing an X as a multiply sign, and you start either writing parentheses or a dot. So we're going to set up a multiplication problem. So 4.6 times 0.07. And then we're going to go through it. So 6 times 7 is 42. So I'm going to write my 2, carry my 4. 4 times 7 is 28. Add the 4, which gives me 32. And then I'm done multiplying by the 7. Now I need to multiply by the 0. So remember, when you move on to your second digit, you have to come down here and add a 0 before you can move on. So 6 times 0 is 0. And then move on to the 4. 4 times 0 is 0. Next, I have to add. So 2 plus 0, 2. 2 plus 0, 2. 3 plus 0, 3. So I have 322 right now. But I need to go back in and put in my decimal. So I have 1, 2, 3 decimals in my problem. So I need to move over 1, 2, 3 to put in my decimals. So my answer would be 0.322. Okay, now I need to look at my negative. So I have negative 0.07. I have negative 0.07 times 4.6. So that's a negative times a positive. So my final answer would be a negative. So negative 0.322. All right, I would like you to try 11 and 12 on your own.
So if you pause your video, you could try 11 and 12.
All right, let's go over 11 and 12. So if I set up the problem and ignore the negative until the end, 0.51 times 2. So 1 times 2 is 2. 5 times 2 is 10. So right now I have 102, but I need to to go back in and count my decimals. So I have 1, 2 decimals. So I need to move 2 decimal places and put my decimal. So that would give me 1.02. And then I need to focus on the negative. So I had a positive times a negative. So that would equal a negative. So my answer would be a negative 1.02. All right, on the next problem, number 12, I have negative 0.04 times negative 3.75. So again, this extra 0 right here isn't necessary. I could write it like this. I'm going to set up my multiplication problem and ignore the negatives. So 5 times 4 is 20. So put my 0, carry the 2. 7 times 4 is 28. Plus 2 would be 30. So put another 0 and carry the 3. 3 times 4 is 12. Plus 3 is 15. So I'm going to write 15. And then next I'm going to move to my second digit, which is 0. So I need to put a placeholder of 0 and then move on. So 5 times 0 is 0. 7 times 0, 0. 3 times 0 is 0. And then I need to add. So 0 plus 0 is 0. Again, 0 plus 0 is 0. 5 plus 0 is 5. 1 plus 0 is 1. Okay, next I need to look at the decimals. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4 decimals. So I need to move my decimal place 1, 2, 3, 4 times. So my answer would be 0.1500. Okay, next we need to look at the negatives. So I had negative times a negative, which would equal a positive. So my answer stays positive. And I could put these zeros right here, or I could also drop the zeros off and just have 0.15. Either would be correct. Okay, we have 2 more problems. So number 13 is a word problem. You don't need to necessarily copy this word for word, that's not necessary. Andrew walks his dog 1/8 of a mile each day, so this would be probably an important part of the problem. What is the total distance that Andrew walks his dog in a 5-day school week? So what do we need to do with these 2 numbers? We have 1/8 of a mile walked each day, and we are walking for 5 days. So we need to go through and multiply. So 5 times 1/8. So remember in the beginning problems, we changed 5 into a fraction. So 5 over 1 times 1 over 8. So if we work straight across, 5 times 1 is 5. Over 1 times 8 is 8. And then can that be simplified at all? So there's nothing that goes into 5 and 8. So the next thing I need to do is just label. So 5/8 of a mile would be my answer. Okay, number 14. I would like you to go through and try this on your own. So if we go over 14, Jamie completes 1/20th of her painting each day. How much of her painting does she complete in a 7-day year? So again, we are multiplying 1 over 20 times 7. So let's make them both fractions. 1 over 20 times 7 over 1. 1 times 7 is 7 over 20 times 1 is 20. And 7 and 20 don't have anything in common. So I just need to label. So my answer would be 7/20 of her painting. Okay, so for your homework assignment, you have page 12, even 2 through 50.
That's 12.